huis toe. Mama roep my thuis toe. Sing vir my, boem mama, boem mama, boem mama, boem mama. Mama vat my huis toe. Mama roep my thuis toe. Sing vir my, boem mama, boem mama, boem mama, boem mama.
Jo, Wayne, is this weer?
Alweer?
Another one.
Another day.
Another one.
Alweer.
You see what I did there?
I saw what you do there.
Kykie, ladies and gentlemen, hoe sê hulle? Welcome. No?
Ja.
No? Welcome to the Wayne Mckay.
En Baydu Adams.
Nou, wacht.
Wat? Oh, oké.
Nou, hoekom moet ek nou vir jou gedinge sit? Toe ek moes nou sê Wayne Mckay, toe moet sy mens automatically gesê het.
Correct. But as you know, with load shedding, I don't know when it's going to happen.
Okay. Nee, ek het jy mos nou gewoon, nou moet jy mos nou, right? Kan ons nou weet?
Ja.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Wayne Mckay
And Baydu Adams.
Oh yeah.
Podcast.
Is it podcast?
Yeah, it's a podcast.
It's a podcast. We're here. We're going to talk nonsense. We're going to talk sensible stuff. Thank you very much for tuning in. We love you. And can I send a shout out to my family? Was that not allowed?
No, not now.
Oh.
We didn't.
Is it not good up FM? But I can.
No.
Thank
You
for
can
the-
do what
thank
you
for
want
the
to, just
picture.
within restrictions. But let's just have the good and hope.
I love you, mommy. Let's just have a good
Mommy got
hope.
that, yeah.
Listen, guys, welcome to another episode of our podcast. Lekker, and we've had lekker guests thus far. We've got an amazing guest today. It was Kani Vachi. Thank you once again to Simplified IT Services
Yes, definitely.
for having us. So, sê jy seker ek mooi vandag.
Ja, weet jy, om te sien dat jy actually geskeer het en sy's hier
Ja.
is
En die feit is in.
die feit is in.
As jy
Ek
feit in
kan
is.
sien dit as was la barang gewees nou, jy kan sien. Maar die res van die dit
feit
was
nie.
het maak nie saak, maar jy kan sien la barang was hier. But I hope you had a nice la barang.
I
by the way.
did,
Nice.
I did,
They bring in my portie. But
Because
it's fine.
Nee, maar it's fine. Ek het gesê mos self jou bordjie barakat bring die dag wanneer sy van my ingelede vis bring van Easter.
Ja.
Boom!
In my mag. Especially as hy vis gekoop is by Woolworths. Okay.
Listen, we're here now. We're going to be chatting to a lekker guest today. I would like to introduce to you MC, a rapper, a b-boy, a man wat a radio presenter is. He's been doing everything. And I must be honest, I've been following this man's career for a long time. No, nie so lank soos sy Lobby se career. Sy Lobby is nou 60 odd. Ons laas keer met haar
Dit sê vir
gepraat.
jou. Ja, sis, jy gaan dit kry my bro.
But ladies and gentlemen, hoe sê hulle? Hola hops. Welcome, Ready D.
Thank you so much. Alweer mense, hola hops. Laat hy steek as dit lekker lyk.
Lekker. Waar hoor hy hola hops vandaan? Wil ek weet.
Hola hops come from our listeners. So I got my radio show running on Good Hope FM. And since they moved me to the daytime show, I don't think that the management realized what was coming. Die hele Kaapse vlakte saam, al die bras op die taxis, die hele beweging. And one of our listeners used to go, hola hops, away. And we were like, okay, this sounds like a lekker move. And then our newsreader, Erin Fox, she was like quite intrigued with it. And she's like, we need to capitalize on this vibe. And and then we soon found out that hola hops was like, okay, just gegroet, ons is lekker. We acknowledge it's like the highest order and the highest level of respect that you can give to somebody when you greet them as hola hops.
Nice. So ek dink away no afkom. A couple of digits daar.
Yeah, our way is kind of like hola hops light.
Hola hops.
Nou nee, een vir jou bro. Ek het gedink hola hops is 'n pakkie chips like.
It sounds like it.
Bubbles.
Yeah.
Say bubbles, but you want some hola hops.
Sounds like a business opportunity.
Hoe lyk ek?
Thank you very much for being here. We really appreciate it. I think one of the questions we like to ask our guests, the first question is, tell us about yourself, like as in where you grew up and your childhood.
Yeah, sure. I grew up in District 6. We were among the last families, to live there. So I always tell people that I've seen District 6 kind of like in its partially glory days, and we've also seen District 6 fall as well. So, we've seen the bulldozers come down. Was it gesien hoe vir al die huise almost, right opposite us, right next to us. I was an altar boy at St. Mark's. The church still stands. Round about 19...
church,
correct, yes. Yeah. So around about 1980, if my memory serves me correct, we had to get out of there. Then we relocated to Lenteghe, Mitchell's Plain, and ever since, I lived in Mitchell's Plain. And you know, Mitchell's Plain se huisies raak maar klein baie gou. And as you grew up and you get a family and whatever, you had to go stand on your own too. And from there, I relocated to Joburg and then back to Cape Town. Then we lived in Surrey Estate. Oh, sorry, we lived in the UK as well at one stage. Terug in Kaap to Joburg, Surrey Estate, from Surrey Estate down into the southern suburbs. So, yeah.
Like a traveling Wilbury.
Hoe else gewees in die wereld?
Ja,
Ek
ja.
was in PE geweest.
Oh, okay, nee, dat is maar niet die omgedraaid. To change hulle sommer die naam ook. Sy gaan hier toe kom sy terug met 'n ander naam. But you've been everywhere. But listen, tell me this, coming from Lente, well, this District 6 and moving to Lente here out in Mitchell's Plain. Did you drive a black, is it a Ford?
Ford Cortina
Cortina.
30S. Yeah,
No, it was
30S.
like a dog. Were you also a lover of Night Rider?
Yes.
Way back in the 80s.
Yeah, guilty as charged.
Guilty as charged.
Guilty as
Because
charged.
the windows was also black. No?
Correct.
So, yeah, oh
Yes.
my word. I thought that was you. So, I can't write Baraj, but obviously the sound was right.
Yeah,
So, you know, rapping and doing what you were doing now for over the couple of decades. I keep on talking about decades because we're getting older. We're not getting younger.
Almal was oud op die
Almal
show
was oud.
according to hom.
But your spots that you were performing, you know, in terms of your trade as whether it's a DJ or rapping, whatever, did it start in Mitchell's Plain originally? Because
Yeah, so a lot of people know me for being involved with hip hop, you know, culture and all the elements that come with the culture. So just before we moved out of District 6 in 1980, I was exposed to Rapper's Delight. So my sister had friends from Gympie Street. One Saturday, this brasser rocked up with a 63 Impala, the same one that Dr. Dre and Snoop them rap about. Yeah, that was my sister's brasser, like for real. So they had a red and white one. And they rolled up one Saturday and they had this portable turntable and a whole lot of vinyls that they bought because, you know, that was the brasser that used to work on Saf Marine. They were like the cool brasser that had money at the time, you know. They rocked up with all these records, and in that batch was Rapper's Delight by the Sugar Hill Gang and Curtis Blow. And when I heard that music, it blew my mind because, correct, yeah. So Rapper's Delight uses the bass line from Good Times by Chic. So, you know, growing up in District 6, thankfully, my father exposed us to reggae music, disco music, funk, soul, the Christmas choirs, die klopse kamer was reg ook aan ons pad. You know, the captain lived right opposite the road and die klopse kamer was net so met a couple of meters away. So thankfully, I've had that exposure as a young kid. And, you know, that was my love for music. Then relocating to Mitchell's Plain, that's when I started to get deeper into the whole move, you know. And then one of my classmates who used to be a neighbor in District 6, hulle het 'n video machine gehad lang vir ons, correct, 'n Betamax. Ja, lang voor
Nee,
ons.
sorry man, hij is van Straffontein man. VHS is gehad.
Ja, they do VHS, 20 keer low budget, ons doen Betamax. So, yeah, he had a video machine at his house. He recorded all this breakdancing stuff that used to come on TV, and he was the first that I saw moonwalk. And when he came to my house, he was doing this really funny popping gooders and moonwalk, and I was like, yo, this is gevaarlijk. I need to learn how to do
But
this.
but that's before Michael even went into doing. He did in the late 80s, I think 86. Michael Jackson.
Yeah,
started doing
that
a
was
moonwalk.
actually before. That was before Michael Jackson.
Before Michael Jackson did it,
yeah. No, definitely. So this guy was Rosano X,
Yes.
a very, very popular DJ in Cape Town City. So he introduced me to the whole hip hop thing. We didn't know what it was though. In my head, I thought, my bro, this is like a gevaarlijke gymnastics move. You know, it's like this. We grew up with post karates. So we used to do bola makis and all that stuff. So I was like, yo, my bro, that post karate sunnies and all that funny stuff we used to do. We can put this to music and make it look quiet. You know, that's what was going on in our heads. Then we entered a Michael Jackson competition in the town center.
Upstairs.
No,
On the thing is, on the square.
in the square, yes. So Ali Michael Jackson's is there, you know, all the brassers geslat with their white shirts and the gloves and
En
allemaal
hy
die en daai.
sokkies.
Die sokkies at face. Yes, the whole
Sorry,
thing.
very popular.
Who's Michael Jackson? I'm of that age. Yeah.
Who's in your meme?
Yeah, so that was kind of the start for us, you know, to getting into the limelight with what we did, as if you want to call it like hip hoppers or break dancers at the time. So 3 of us rocked up. It was 3 classmates, myself, Rosano, and then Goga. Goga became a legendary graffiti artist in our country. So he's regarded as like the grandfather of graffiti art. So he's die drie brasse wat rondspring en hop, soos wurms in die ronde and doing boss karate moves with the caps turned sideways. I just remember the whole town center going quiet. Het het niks te doen met Michael Jackson. I'm a still. Yes. But thankfully we won the competition though. So Dr. Spook from Club Fantasy. He was there as a talent scout. Him and his partner Rocky, they managed the talent and the whole story at the Club Fantasy, and we became the resident dancers at Club Fantasy. So that was our first taste of ghetto superstardom. Yeah, right there and then.
You know, I must say, you're really taking me way back to town center when it was still safe. We could walk and go in and buy what you could and make it to the taxi rank, not being robbed or whatever the case may be.
Yes.
But we all come from Mitchell's Plain and different areas across Cape Town, Western Cape. But now, in terms of, you speak about hip hop and break dancing. Was that just at the time trying to find yourself and say, listen, where do we belong in that? Because that was the age, obviously, in the States where we also obviously came together.
Yeah.
Was it just trying to find yourself as individuals, as artists?
I would say yes, but we didn't know it at the time. We were just young people gravitating towards this music and this culture, and it was cool at the time. And for us, trying to figure out what these kids were doing in the States was really fascinating. But because we were young and, you know, we were really active like this at the time, you know, with all the bomlakisis and all of that. So it came as second nature, and the music sounded good and interesting as well. And the other thing, I got to say, though, you know, most of the kids that we saw dancing in these videos from the US, we could relate to that because that looked like us.
Yeah.
You know, so we saw ourselves in those videos. And as the competitions grew, the culture grew, the commercial media started to pick up on it, we became more entrenched, if you want to call it that, you know. And I got to tell people, though, that I think the culture saved my life, you know. Typical Mitchell's Plain, lentegeelheid, skitting with the wrong brasse, and we know where that leads. You know, so thankfully, being active and practicing so much and all these things kind of took me away from that lifestyle. And it also gave my friends the surety that I'm not skitting with other brasse that could potentially be an opposing gang. Because they saw me one day on my cardboard box opposite my mother's
I was just
house.
going to talk about the cardboard box.
Yeah.
Was hy banana box?
Yeah, so banana boxer, the brood boxer, whatever you could
You
find.
said vinyl carpet.
Yes, all of that. So, you know, there was a bit of concern from the brasse. They don't see this bra anymore.
Did you have like a name back then? Like
Yes,
the B-boy crew
my
name.
our first crew was called the City Kids. Then the City Kids became the Ballastic Rockers. Then Ramon and Jasmo and all that brass started to join the crew. Then the crew expanded. My breakdance name at that time was King Stud.
King Stud,
Ek het nie geweet wat dit meen nie.
Now you know.
So,
Did you make any movies?
he was
VHS.
wait, family show. Can we cut the spot? So I used to wear this glove, man, with studs in. But then somebody broke the name down for me. And I was like, bra, ek wil niks doen met blauwetjies en sulke goed te sien. Los daai vir die groot mense. And short after that, I became known as Reddy D. By my friends. So D is for my birth name, which is Dion. I converted to Islam quite a few years ago. So people still call me Dion, and I'm okay with that. Mamit was my naam gegee, so you know, it's that vibe. And then the ready part was like, bra, can't you relax? Are you ready for alles? As 'n huis Joel se wil gaan, as 'n battle se wil gaan, sy spring op 'n trein se wil gaan, julle loop van die lentejaar loop julle Rocklands toe om brasse te gaan battle, is ready for alles, can't you just relax? Yeah.
That was all a music battle, not a real battle, but they actually was no battle because
No. Yeah, it was all dance battles. Yeah, dance battles, and you meet the brass in Portland's. You look with your cardboard box. Yeah.
Your boombox and your cardboard box.
Absolutely. You lay the cardboard box down wherever there's a cul-de-sac or pavement or whatever, and we dance. And it was the same, and that was the culture for many years. Yeah. Until we ended up in teasers, not the strip joint. And it wasn't a strip joint then.
But did you know that a certain human being right next to me used to be a breakdancer?
For real?
Yeah, definitely. But I can't do the wurm like I used to.
No.
I can't do the wurm. I mean, we're all over a certain age.
My wife was gevaarlijk with a worm though. She was a break dancer from Lentegee as
Yeah,
well.
no,
No, auntie can slat it. And she can slat it sideways as well. And I'm like,
I
yo,
will definitely not be able to go sideways. I said sideways, no moet wurm. And medical aid like, no, we can't even touch you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no.
No, I'm with you on that vibe. Yeah.
Immediately, moet jy begraven word. And that's what would happen to me. But I mean, there was good times. In fact, you know, like you just said, trying to find yourself as an artist and you know, doing all these battles. Because look, you obviously saw what you've seen on TV, what they're doing in the States. I mean, it obviously festered off to the UK as well. But in terms of the different, I mean, the other day I was just watching some of the movies, the breakdance movies
Turbo.
from in
But
Turbo
Breakdance 1 and 2 and Beat Street and all of that. Yeah.
And just watching those, I was like, gee, I can't believe I've seen this over and over and over again. In which way did that inspire you guys to actually make your own music?
So what happened is we got this opportunity to dance inside Club Teasers. Yeah, it had nothing to do with the strip joint. So let me take you back to late 1984, 85 quickly, right? So we used to take a train from Lentegee, then we meet other kids jumping on, you know, at Bonteville and all the other stations, you know, from the Cape Flats. The train is full of like these cardboard boxer. So we used to jump off and then we used to take our chances to go and battle like this on the White Station. That was Mr. White, colored, black,
yes.
and the carriages and all that was divided, and you know, and we couldn't go to certain spaces. But we wanted to dance on the White Station because it was Mckay, man. The surface was nice and it was clean and whatever, and that's why we wanted to go there. So we would dance until either the cops or the security would chase us. Then we end up at the fountain in the Golden Acre, just when the Golden Acre was built, you know, at the time, because it's all quiet spaces with nice surfaces, 100%. Then we ended up in St. George's Mall. That time, I think it was Garlics used to be located there. Long story short, we didn't know that we had friends around the corner in Lentegee that used to dance at Teasers. One of our friends, our hip-hop friends, he had a relationship with one of the ladies there. And they were like, you got to come to Teasers, man. Stick 8, yeah. And then we met the girls. And I'm like, bravo, wat gaat hier aan? Colored kinders met swart rokke en swart eyeliner om hulle oë. Die mense lyk 'n bietjie te creepy for me. I was like, I wasn't sure if I wanted to go. Anyway, we get into Club Teasers, and I'm like, yes, white light is here. We're not supposed to be here. En these mense met punkrokke, hairstyles en Mohegans en mense met goede spikesdele en niste.
There was a time of Sid Vicious.
All that vibes. I didn't understand it. I didn't know what was going on, so it was foreign for me. I only knew Lentegee and the Cape Flats. That was it.
Because punk was big during that time.
100%, yeah. So then, long story short again, we were allowed to do like 5 minutes, you know, in the club. 5 minutes became 10 minutes. More breakers used to come through. The 10 minutes in became like a half an hour session. DJ Razana was allowed to play the music for the breakers. More kids came through, more kids started to get involved with the punk rock scene, you know, so it was punk rockers and hip hoppers and it was reggae and
It's like
ska.
a defiance almost.
100%. It was counterculture. Everything that wasn't commercial of the day. You know, Cape Town City had a certain look and a sound. En ons was just alles wat verkeerd kan wees, you know, according to that side of the spectrum, 100%. So we ended up in Club Teasers, and we used to have these rap battles and all these things, and there was a lady that was like so gevaarlijk. This bra was just on the other level, and their crew used to just freaking take everybody out. And then Club Teasers shuts down, and it moves to 88 Short Market Street, and it becomes the base.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in the bases where things kind of evolved, and that was just slightly before I got back from the UK, my first trip. So with my first trip, I come back with all those vinyls and cassettes and whatever, so now the culture is fever. So we end up at the base. That's when things start evolving. A mutual friend tells me, this bra here, this bra's house, hulle het 'n recording studio in die huis. my lente here, Mitchell's plain brain must go, ek gaat ryk wees. If I become friends with this, bruh, I'm going to record albums. I'm like, Rapper's Delight. It's a hip hop, a hip to the hippity. They're brass with it and rapping about cars and swimming pools and goodness and all of that
And
stuff.
watch the Knicks play basketball.
Yeah, so you can imagine what goes on in a young bra's head at that time. And I'm so hyped up, I want to meet this bra. So just so happens that this bra actually wants to meet me because he couldn't believe that we are doing the scratching live.
Yeah.
You know, all the goodness on the turntable because the DJ box was elevated. So you could only hear, but you couldn't see.
see
Our
what
heads
was
were just sticking out when you're looking from the dance floor up.
Yeah.
Anyway, we then meet. His name is Shaheen Arifdin.
Oh, yeah.
Sepa is Isi Arifdin from Pacific Express.
Yes.
Zayn Adams and all that people are all connected. They were all in the same band and all of that. Wow. Shaheen comes to my house. I hustle Shaheen. Look, you take a demo tape back to your dad. He takes the demo tape back. Thank the Lord, the dad's partner was an offbeat bra, wit bra. That also toured the world. So he got a whiff of hip-hop culture, counterculture, all of that. It excited him. Shortly after that, it was like, okay, can you guys come through to our house in Matroosfontein? And you guys start laying down demos. And that's practically the birth of Prophets of the City. That's how it started. So I'm in Matroosfontein. Shaheen praat van Nelson Mandela en Steve Biko en die mense.
Sy wil net kinders meet.
Yes. I'm like, bruh, Volkotine TTS. Boxy Triple S. Focus, my brother. Focus. Ek soek 'n interceptor. You know, ek soek die waarheid. This bruh is talking about
SU
protesting and gunning on and whatever. Ek ken nie van Mandela nie, ek ken nie die Steve Biko mense nie. Little to know that he was on the SRC, so he was, of course, a political activist. And he was pulling me on the one side, and there was a little bit of a tug and war situation going on. One night we're sitting in the recording studio. We're looking for music to inspire us and music to sample. So Mr. Isi Arifdin, he's got a brilliant collection of jazz music. So Shaheen pulls out the vinyl, pops it on the deck, drops the needle, and doom, 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 Abdullah Ibrahim. And that was probably the most, I would say that was a powerful moment. So that was the catalyst for POC. And right then I actually wrote a political verse. He wrote a political verse. And I'm telling people, I always tell people when we have these conversations, I still can't articulate what happened that night. So we wrote a song, and our first song became Boksburg Blues, which was like a full-blown political song. I didn't even know where Boksburg was at the time. But for some reason, there was just something that happened while listening to the music of Abdullah Ibrahim in that moment.
Uprise, in a sense.
Correct, that moved the person on so many different levels, you know.
And especially the time where the country was at that particular point in time during the 80s. Because
Correct.
it was very heated as well.
100%. It was state of emergencies. The army rocked up on our schools. You know, they would beat us up, beat our
All
teachers
the
up.
time.
All of those things, correct, yeah. They would throw us in the police van for trying to graffiti and brighten up our neighborhoods. Remember, nobody understood what all of that was about. So we had all of those very weird experiences, and meeting Shaheen, that was definitely the turning point. Abdullah Ibrahim was the turning point, and of course, Mr. Isi Arifdin. All of those combined, and a very understanding mom played a huge role as well, you know, because I grew up as a single parent. Just before we moved out of District 6, my dad died, you know, so it was a very difficult thing for my mom to manage. 'n laaitjie wat hier wil wees en daar wil wees en nou dans sy onderste boop sy kop en you know all of that stuff. So you can imagine what must happen, what goes through a parent's mind at that time. Ma moet hier 3 o'clock in die oggend opstaan. She's got to walk from Lentegee to town center to take the bus, and you are left to your own devices. So you know it was all of those things happening all at the same time.
If I can quickly interrupt you, man, just the POC thing. I kind of have spoken about something like this before, and you alluded to it when you were saying it was a tough time, political time, whatever. How did you guys get through that? Because hier kan ze niet jezelf express, nie. Hier staan, zoals al gezegd, die boeren met die mellow yellows en die Caspers en die
Yes.
Kiergers. Wacht op jou. How did you take that you had, that remedy essence, whatever you had, and give it to the world without being sort of arrested and caught up with it? and B, making sure your message gets out there to all the kids like
Yeah.
us who are living on the flats?
You see, we needed to say something because it felt right and it felt necessary to say what we said at that time because of the situation, the state of emergencies, the Witduke, the CCB, all the assassinations and all that things. So when POC released its first album, we know that the group blew up. There was nothing that looked like it, sounded like it, whatever the case may be, and the message that came. That set off so many alarm bells. So that was the first album, Owl. The second album, Boom Style, drops, and that's when they ban us. There was D-Stem and On-Stem. So our version of D-Stem was banned from the album. So that was the first time that we felt, the repercussions and the might of the apartheid government coming in.
Financially now also.
Even financially as well. And this is a story that not many people know. Even proclaimed POC fans don't know the story. We then get a deal to record a music video up in Joburg at the SABC studios, ironically. So now we're in the studios, ons is binne in die studio and whatever, and we're like, what can you? So it was the Toyota Top 20, I don't know if you remember that.
Neil
Was it
Johnson,
pop-up?
Neil
and
Johnson.
Lawrence Dube.
100% correct. So the producer arranged for us to record Kicking Non-Stop over there. So that was one of the most commercial songs on the album because of the record label needed commercial music because they're a business. They want to sell records and we're resisting on the other end. Anyway, so we do Kicking Non-Stop and they got this gyroscope thing in there and they got this hip-hop dancers looking all funky and then tutus, the brasses and tutus and whatever. And I'm like, bruh, how are we going to navigate this? This is not our look, it's not our feel. But at the time, that was like the commercial look. Sure. That's what was trending globally, even before the internet, I might say. But anyway, long story short, and we felt, look, this is a very commercial song. The characters that he brought into the video, they don't sit quite well, but we need to make a political statement. Anyway, there's a fridge in the corner in the studio. And I see PW Botha's photo hanging on the wall. And I'm like, bruh, this is how we're going to make a statement. Take PW Botha's photo off and then we put it in the fridge. So I take the photo off. Okay, everybody agree. This move is going to work. I sit to the brasa photo by the fridge and I close the door and I say, chill out, homeboy. So that was the political statement. Gee so we got one screening and then the word got back, KK, banned. Weer geband. And then we had to cut that scene out of Kicking Non-Stop. So that's Boom Style, and then the third album drops. So now we're on our Vote Education tour, we're touring the whole country, and now we know the ding is going Garuk because Mandela was about to be released from prison. And we know that was probably the most violent times for our country. It was bad. And of course, our political and social stance become more intense and it becomes more amplified because people are dropping like flies around us and we know, we are aware of the fact that we are definitely in the sights of the government. So we on our Vote Education tour and we're like, brassa, we're not taking chances over here. Arm yourselves to the teeth. Die een koop 'n groter gun as die ander ene because we're touring the country and you never know.
Anything can happen.
Yeah, correct. I mean, how all the political activists and all the organizations were silenced and banned and gagged during the time, the newspapers. And we felt we needed to speak about it. So we end up in Botswana and we record The Age of Truth, our third album. And I think all hell broke loose on that album.
It was a hectic album.
Yeah, when I listen to it now, I can't believe I actually said stuff like that. I'm like, bravo.
It was because you were taking on back then the government and
Correct.
leaders but when I say take on, I mean take on.
Probably the most explicit in your face, if you want to call it, form of rebellion ever through any
Was that when
works
Ishmael
of
was
music.
with you guys already? At
They
that stage?
just joined us because we were based in Joburg and we were touring and doing the Vote Education tour. So this tour was teaching people how they should vote and also teaching people why they should vote as well. So we had a whole show choreographed around that. We toured with VOC voting booths and ballot papers and all of those things. And now, people are dying, assassinations. Almal die in Botswana, which is a puppet state. And we know what happens there in a puppet state. So we have this opportunity to record in Bob Studios. And Bob Studios was like a state-of-the-art recording studio at the time. And a lot of American artists flew in under the radar to record there because of the cultural boycotts. Our motivation was we wanted our craft, our album and our music to sound better. So there's no other recording studio on the African continent like that. So the only desire was to improve the quality. Correct. So we end up in Bob Studios. They assassinate Chris Hani. Right there, we write a song about it, Blood, Bullets and Pigs. Anyway, so I'm just going to fast track quickly. We're busy recording.
Ja,
but-
ons moet nog kwesties ook vra. Jy praat die hele tyd, nou.
Yeah, sorry, man. but I feel this is something that's very important,
no,
though. It's very
I'm
important, though.
pleased,
You know. So we record the album's done. Our manager starts making duplicates of the master tape. So in the main recording studio is all the gear other than the 24-track digital recorders, which is outside in the passage. As he backs up one of the songs in the line, Shaheen says, F Mangopi, even if we record here.
Even if we record, ja.
Yeah. So the studio manager hears this, and also must know in Mangopi Saland.
Sy land op dit
So if the word had to get out, they put us in a firing line and they assassinate us right there on the spot. Then there's nothing nobody can do. So this engineer flipped his lid. He pulled us into the boardroom. The brass starts swearing, are you guys effing crazy? You know what can happen to us? If this gets out now, all of us are dead. We're dead. And the bra goes off. And we're like, yo, we just want to leave now, you know? And then luckily, the master was smuggled out, so we didn't have the original copy. We had the backup of the master, and that's how we released The Age of Truth. As we leave, the AWB comes in, and that's when the gunfight happened, when they killed all that AWB members. So we were just past that scuffle, yeah. And we continued the vote education tour, so we've been all across the country, from Soweto to Alex to the Cape Flats, you name it, the darkest, dingiest, poorest places, poorest of the poor. We've been in all of those areas, yeah. So that was a little bit of a
No, that's so
of a
important.
POC.
And that's an important part of history, eh?
And I'm glad that you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Because it's got something we don't know.
Strange thing, so
Yeah.
that album wins all the awards overseas. Midam Music Awards, everything. It wins all those awards and nothing in our country.
And I was going to ask
Banned.
you, sorry, wait, if I can
Die
just
land is
cut in.
dood stil.
En ek wil vir jou gevra het, because I know for a fact Norway and those places, you were bigger there, in my opinion,
100%.
than here.
Correct.
How kind of a mind if is that, where it says, maar net put that D,
Yes.
but daar's a superstar.
Correct, yeah.
How did you guys handle that?
It was, you know, moving overseas gives you a completely different perspective, you know, because we didn't think of ourselves as political activists and whatever. Number one, we loved hip-hop culture and all the creative aspects that come with it. So going there, you see the world differently. You see how people operate differently. The first thing that blew my mind is, my bro, we're actually getting a dressing room.
Yeah.
And there's people's putting food in our dressing room. Was it vrugte? Man kry 'n handdoek. Nah, here in South Africa, no dressing room. You in the trenches, just stand in your onderbroek after the stage and you must change.
As amper soos met die vodka, daar's ons. Jy moet ons eie water gaan koop. en-
Maar daar is 'n handdoek, daar is 'n handdoek.
You know, so it's those things. It might be small now. I mean, it might be regarded as like trivial things now, but back then it was a big thing. So you see how people operate, and then all of a sudden you're on stage with James Brown, the godfather of soul. Then you're on stage with the Fugees. Then the Fugees invite you to open up for them in Paris. Then you're doing a freestyle cypher backstage with Wycliffe. So you find yourself in those situations, and then you're meeting the godfather of hip-hop, you know, known as Africa Bambata. So you're in the studio with him. Then you're meeting the original founders of the gangs, Bloods and Crips. Now you're sitting there. Now you're interacting with Muslims. It's got a little bit of a different outlook, you know, on the deen and all of these things. And now you're in meetings with the Nation of Islam. So you're being exposed to all these things. And then you're at another festival, and now you interacting with Native Americans, like the authentic Divara. So it's like the equivalent of the Khoi or the Khoi. Yeah. They don't wear shoes, they don't wear Western clothing. Almal die dinge, and you're getting an education from these people. So the world exposes you to so much different things. So that kind of helped us as well. It also helped us with our music, because we then landed a record deal which kept us in the UK, and all of that practically took us to Norway, to Denmark, to East Berlin, even before the wall came down. This is the irony, I must tell you. When we went to East Berlin, behind the wall, we had Nazis as bodyguards. net sulke groot Nazis, wit brasse, self-confessed freaking Nazis, and we were still riding in it old school Russian currencies that they had back then. So it was a different world in East Berlin compared to the other side, you know. So, yeah, I thought I'd use the opportunity to mention those things.
I like that because it's a lesson in education as to where you could start, whether you're starting in Lente here, out in Mitchell's Plain, out in the streets, out in town center, with coming up with that little box, banana box,
Here we go.
performing, and your journey starts where, for example, you would say the tug of war in terms of bringing bringing politics in, and you wanting to, because that was basically the start of your craft, and that is what an art is all about.
Yeah.
You're creative, that's the kind of the tug in itself.
Yeah.
You want to be involved in politics. You're also being stifled, but you need to go through that process to get where you were.
And this
Correct.
commercial angle as
And
well.
there's a
because you need to get
commercial
paid.
angle as well.
Yeah. So the commercial angle was a horrible beast to contend with. But you can't understand it because you're living in a Western capitalist society, so there needs to be commercialism to keep your head above water, you know. So we needed to fight all of those things as well. But the hardest part was not being home with your family. That for me was the hardest thing. When we came back after releasing our 5th album, which was titled Universal Soldiers, that album wasn't released in South Africa. So once again, our country don't even know about the existence of that album. So that album did very, very well for us in establishing us on a global platform. But coming home, it was a lonely world. It's almost like you have to readjust to society.
And your brain has
Your
to,
thinking and alles. You're sitting with friends and family, and you just can't relate to what people saying. Mense maak jokes, you don't find it funny because in your head is...
you're at another level now, in other words, almost.
It's almost like you've been fighting a war because you're in this thinking and you're in the stream with just activism. Was it tyd for jokesy, you know, because we see what we or where we need to be from a societal / economic / political standpoint. When you see what people have in Scandinavia, you see what people have in Europe, and you're thinking, but we should have that in better, man, because, you know, us as requirements, so we're intelligent people, we got the skills, we got the mindset, but when you come home and you see where we are, it was a difficult thing to grapple with.
Can I just ask you, it's 2023.
Yeah.
In my head, it's almost a similar situation. I mean, was it some tires brand, klippe gegooid,
Yes.
whatever. Like, just in a short way, like, what is your feeling about that? Because I want to take one step back also, praat nou vra questions in, but POC, Prophet of the City, had a message. And I felt, in my opinion, when the New South Africa came, there was no need for this message anymore because you're in a new dispensation.
Correct.
How was that translated into where we are right now?
You see, in terms of how young people are being targeted and impacted by the industry, it's all by design. The music business, commercialism, and all the aspects that come with it is very, very important for them to keep us ignorant. Because when you dof, just dom, but you dang just kwai. That makes money for companies.
So true.
And that makes it so easy for a government to control you because they hate conscious, woke, wakker mense, they hate spiritual people because they know then they can't bamboozle you.
Correct.
So now I'm telling you, look, A, B, C, D, and E ingredients in that drink or that meal, it's bad for you. But just like, I can't understand what you're saying, proer and lekker, you know? So jy het nie nog tyd vir sulke gesels, whatever. So it's very important for them, you know, to keep us subdued and to keep us dof. And when you listen to a lot of the music, it's got those messaging that constantly comes through, and they'll push that and they'll push that because that is what builds capitalist empires. So I think it's all by design. We're not excluded from that, you know, as an industry, as a culture, as a society. So it's just something that we need to work through, you know, and hopefully we are able to unite with more people that's on a similar level of thinking, and we can find a new way to commercialize things and to make things successful, but at least we know there's intent that comes with it, you know, there's principle or there's something that comes with that, you know. They are there. I must say, I must salute the men and women that's doing those things, you know, so
But
I
it's
just
done
feel...
at a bigger scale almost.
Correct, yeah. No, I think it's also important just to bring, if there's a way to bring everybody together at least, so we're all aware, you know, that, okay, we're existing and we're not on a lonely island, and I think we'll be all right. But at the moment, what we see on the commercial realm, it's all by design.
Kijk hier, te say we're all aware, maar ze kept saying.
I said, oh yeah. We must all become our way.
No, but coming from, I mean, your story is so magnificent in terms of, the history, and I'm listening to you. I feel like a student still listening, and it's great to be able to kind of the knowledge that you have and everything that you've done over the years, going from country to country. The new cats that we have that's doing hip hop, that's rapping.
Baydu.
Yeah, well, Baydu is kind of, I don't want to just say it
Hy
out
wil
there.
net no, nie sê ek kan ook rap nie, maar
The shots fired.
Ik praat maar even mensen wat
okay.
een rapper opmaakt. That type of guys.
Okay.
I'm rap now. What's your thoughts on them and in terms of the message that they're trying to put out there?
I'm always telling people there's more conscious music and conscious hip-hop music than they've ever been before. It just depends where you search. So if you're just going to go with what you see on TV and what pops up on your timeline or whatever the case may be, it's there. Like I say again, it's there for a reason and it's there for a purpose, as you pointed out now for the commercialism aspect. The thing about Cape Town, though, that I really love, and the culture here, we're not afraid to take risks. Also, si bang om kanse te vat with our music. We still activists to a certain degree. We're still artists to a certain degree. There's a lot of kids here, of course, they're leaning towards the commercial side and understand that.
You need to make money, you need to put food on your
Yeah,
table.
and also in terms of how you're being introduced to the music. So you're going to get your hip-hop through your Nicki Minaj, your Meg Thee Stallions, your Little Waynes, and Amal die mense, and in their heads, that is the hip-hop for them. So some of the kids think that Tupac is old school, but they haven't been exposed to anything, beyond Tupac or whatever, so they can't wrap their heads around Grandmaster Flash, Cool Herc, and Amal die mense, or POC, or Black Noise. Yeah. So there's a big void in the educational aspects when it comes to that. But just getting back to Cape Town again, the thing that I love about the hip-hop scene at the moment, especially the Afrikaans scene, of the Afrikaans scene, there's this huge embrace for our language, our culture, our dialect, also taal, and there's a huge Khoisan movement coming through as well. So the culture is still educating people and it's still drawing youth in, and we're becoming more curious, we're more willing, to learn. And once, and you can hear it, once those lighties kind of understand where they are, what's going on, they feel empowered. So it reminds me of POC. You stumble on information, you stumble on something, and you go, yo, man, bro, I'm feeling so freaking awesome. I need to say this. Oops, my fault. So you kind of got that feeling, and you want to go out there and express yourself, and whether you contradicting yourself or not, but at least you're moving in a different direction.
Yeah.
So that's my take. And then I got to tell people as well, we have a lot of world champions living on the Cape Flats.
It's a whirlwind.
Yeah. With that, some opening rappers and stuff like that. Yeah. But
The man is just compliment.
I saw that.
We've got world. That you see it for make us quiet.
Yeah, absolutely. We can't deny it.
Difficult for me to swallow.
Okay.
The rap.
So all these personalities, all these kids are there. So I think it's just a case of us to be mindful of it as well. And I feel we need to embrace each other more. Whether I'm a hip-hopper, I'm a dancer, or I'm a businessman or woman or whatever the case may be, if you're doing something right with the correct intent, whatever, I just feel we really have to celebrate that, man. Ons moet geraas maak when you see the content coming up on social media, share. These awesome kinders, these awesome mense. Nobody else is going to do it for us.
You know what? I pushed it once on social media very hard, where I said, flood social media with things we do. Because now I'll tell you why. One day, just random, I typed in Cape Flats. Guess what comes up?
Oh, yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's nomas, it's gangsters, it's drugs, it's crime. It's all that comes up. No klopse, no artists, no singers, no rappers, no dancers, no intelligent people, no professors, doctors, business people. None of that. So I'm saying flood everything with pictures, videos, talks, write blogs, do all of those type
Absolutely,
of things. Yeah.
and break away from the stereotypes,
Away.
man. So also, we know the gang problem, we
Yeah,
know the
yeah.
drug problems and whatever, but we need to focus on the other aspects so that we can change how the world sees us.
Quite.
You know, because the industry, TV, almal die mense, they're still stuck on colored people. They not
No,
stand in
yeah,
your money.
yeah.
Jy's dumb because you got an accent. They think that you're uncultured
Oh, bra.
or whatever the
But
case
if
may be.
a bra's got a French accent, dan praat hy kwaai.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maar hy het 'n French accent en ek het 'n Cape Flats accent. It's the same bloody thing.
100%, 100%. And this is why we always tell people, man, come guys, come ladies. We got these things that's so powerful. And we can change the narrative. And if you're out there, support your own. The government have clearly demonstrated they don't care.
Yep.
They don't care about us. They're not going to they're not going to give us a chance. And we're forever going to be sitting at the master's table fighting for the crumbs, you know? So we need to move beyond that, because if we look at who we are as a people, as we look at our forefathers, foremothers, you look at where we come from a bloodline of kings and queens. I always tell people, KK, David mense, yeah, they brought a part of our families and our ancestors. They brought them here for a reason. They didn't bring stupid people here. So don't think that they put the title of slave on us because they mentally want to keep us subdued. I tell people, nee, my forefathers and foremothers, hulle was 'n slawe nie. And die wit man se oë, ja. You know, the oppressor's eyes, you might think of me as a slave, but you brought our people here to come and build this country for you, you know?
You needed that expertise.
Correct. They brought mathematicians, they brought philosophers, they brought the political prisoners that came over here because, you know, they were the disruptors there, but they knew what they could contribute to them here. And, you know, that, so our people, we come from the essence of
Quite.
God, people.
Quite.
Let's invest in that and let's build on that. We come from the essence of God, from Allah, whatever you may call it. Let's build on that. That's our gift.
Tadie, we're gonna almost end off. I just got two things to ask. If it's okay with
No,
you.
you might, you
Baydu Adams
That's quite
anyway.
fine.
No.
JC rapper?
No.
JC
It's the Wayne Mckay and Baydu Adams show. But I'm gonna ask one question before I ask if we can do something. One more question. Brasa Vannie Kaap. There
Yeah.
was a guy that was at school with us, Hammer.
Yes.
An amazing guy. What sparked that you, Hammer Fat?
Correct.
What sparked that as a new branch or from POC?
Brasa Vannie Kaap was born under a table on a floor in London.
Wow.
Yeah. I was sleeping. The accommodation in London is small.
Yeah.
So the hele POC, moet extra manne is living in a small flat.
Yeah, no.
So my spotty was under a table. Langs aan my record box en ek het my kombesie daar. And one night I was laying awake and I was writing as Fords and Innocence and I was writing that lyrics down.
Just
And I
comes
was
to
like,
you.
yeah. And I was like,
It happens to us when we rappers.
Yes, I know,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I'm young. He's my rapper.
But ek wil net vir Wayne explain, like, you know, when we are Afrikaans rappers, it comes to us. Go on, sorry, go on.
definitely. So,
Ek het ook onder 'n tafel geslaap.
It's like earthquake.
so that lyrics is in my notepad, and I'm like, yo, this is not going to work for POC. We're not on this vibe now. Plus, I'm missing home now. Anyway, we get a break to come home. Fly home. The first thing that I do is I call up Mr. Fat. May his soul rest in peace from Pontyville. So Mr. Fat, Hammer, all these kids, we were all from the base. So Hammer was with his crew, Mr. Fat was with his crew, and I was like, yo, I know two brassen that will actually be quiet. And because they are my friends, I'm going to propose that we put something together called Brasa Vannie Kaap. Yeah. And just to clear something, Vannie Kaap,
It's another group.
very different, came many, many years
It's
later.
duidelijk.
Yeah. By mense, very different. No connection.
Brasa Vannie Kaap.
Zero connection. BVK Brasa Vannie Kaap, no connection to Vannie Kaap. Anyway, I came home, hooked up Mr. Fat, hooked up Hammer, and I'm like, once I got this idea, BVK, Brasa Vannie Kaap, also Brasa, we then always starting Gatsby's when we come home, let's go for a Gatsby and whatever. I wrote the song, Fords, Listens, Toys, Beatles, but I feel that we need to do a full-blown Afrikaans album because on POC it was Xhosa, Zulu, Sotho, Tswana, one or two songs, you know, in our Cape Flats dialect, but I felt we needed to do full-length albums using our language. they agreed to it, and that was the birth of Vannie Kaap. And our first video was FNTB, and it was shot guerrilla style on the pubbies with Navavi and Amalai Manas spinning the cars and popping
The
wheelies.
Bobby was also in school with us.
Yeah, there we go. That same Navavi with his Datsun Laurel. Yes, Oppie pubbies.
It
Yeah,
was
yeah.
still very cheap that time.
Yeah, definitely popping wheelies and all that hooters. And that was the birth of Vannie Kaap.
But Tati, we're going to have to go now.
Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for very much. Thank you very much for having. Thank you for very much. Thank you very much for having. But listen, man, I think we should do something. Man.
Yeah.
So I had this idea. I don't know how you feel about
No,
it.
I'm quite fine.
Kijk,
What is the idea?
because ik is mos 'n rapper.
Oh.
Right?
You're going to unwrap a Gatsby first.
I'm
We're
kidding,
unwrapping a
guys.
Gatsby.
I'm joking. But I was thinking, do you still remember Dala Flat? Kyk my broer allerlei dinge met sy los. Because I'm thinking maybe
I'll try.
If you tell me, man, then
I'll
I'm gonna rap with
see.
you.
Okay.
Or you can rap with me.
You start and maybe you spark some
And then
memory.
when can you
Yes.
beatbox a bit?
And I will, yeah, I can beat. Ik weet een box niet, ik kan beat.
Nee, maar jy kan nie kap op die tafel.
Okay, but ik kan try, van wat ik nog remember van die 80s.
Okay,
Ja,
right.
okay.
Nou, die camera op ons
Yo,
professional.
okay.
right?
Hier gaan ons. Okay, you start. I'm gonna see if I can fall in.
Kykie, my broer, allerlei dinge moet sy los, want die geld kan gegaan het vir die fikse kos en as ek sy is, ek kry ek my jou postel aan sy eieren op die hoek om 'n pyp te rook, maar hy dinge sal die wekkie, en maak die oekie steekie, ek gedraai in sy gatjie met kekie, jou ma, jou pa, hulle albei kry
Swaar van sonne, 'n job is als die mekaar, die reën, die lug, die water gaan op. Ek sê my broer, vergiet wat hy skop, die dop moet die hop. Vooruit ding, doen er iets goed om geld uit te bring, want 'n ding wat sting, is wat hier reg, ja, 'n ding wat sting, moet sy draai om te vechten, is 'n total disgrace, sy maak het aan die grys, sy gaat te soemen met my face, miskien raak sy wees. Gevaarlijk.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, Baydu is the new lead rapper for
Kan sy hoor?
Prophets of the City 2.0.
En ik is die beatbox.
Us,
Thank
yeah,
you
us,
very
yeah.
much for doing
Away!
it. Thank you very much for
You're
being
most
here.
welcome. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
We'll see you next time. Baydu and the Wayne Mckay, breed verkeerd zit. Wayne Mckay and Baydu Adams podcast show. Thanks to Simplified IT Services. We'll see you next time. Wayne.
Definitely, I had a... Even een super rap. Ja! Maar ik kan voelen, jullie profit kom hier om mezelf. Maar ik kan hij doen niet. Ik heb een astmaboos, ik kan hij doen niet. Goodbye voor de mensen. O, zien jullie
Die
weer.
suidooste wind en die wisse wallegerie. Ek weet ek's nie die enigste een, maar vat my huis toe.